There is a room. Nothing is happening. No one is shouting. No one is moving toward you. And yet, your body disagrees. Your shoulders tighten. Your eyes scan every corner. Your back presses against the wall. You feel it, that quiet certainty. Something is wrong. Someone is watching. Someone is about to attack. But are they? Tonight, on Anatomy of Intent, we dissect 3 psychological states that look similar from the outside, yet come from very different internal worlds. Hypervigilance, paranoia, persecutory delusion. 3 ways the mind can turn safety into threat. 3 different origins of fear. 3 different architectures of intent. Imagine a soldier returning home. The war is over, but the body does not know it. This is hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is not a belief. It is a state, a nervous system locked in survival mode. The heart beats faster. The ears tune to the smallest sound. The eyes measure exits. The brain constantly asks, where is the danger? This state is common in people with trauma, especially those living with post-traumatic stress disorder, but it can also appear in chronic anxiety, childhood instability, or prolonged stress. Here is the critical distinction. In hypervigilance, the person does not necessarily believe someone is coming to attack them. They feel as if someone could. It is anticipation, not accusation. The mind is scanning probabilities, not assigning enemies. If you ask someone in hypervigilance, is someone trying to harm you? They may say, no, but I have to be ready. Hypervigilance is the smoke detector that goes off too easily. It is a system designed for survival, refusing to power down. Intent here is defensive, protective, adaptive, once. But when the threat disappears and the alarm stays on, protection becomes prison. Now imagine a different scenario. You enter a cafe. 2 people laugh. Your chest tightens. They're laughing at me. Someone glances at their phone. They're texting about me. This is not just bodily alertness. This is interpretation. This is paranoia. Paranoia is a pattern of thought. It involves suspicion, the belief that others may intend harm, ridicule, betrayal, or surveillance. Unlike hypervigilance, paranoia assigns agency. Someone is responsible. Someone is watching. Someone is planning. But here's the nuance. Paranoia exists on a spectrum. At mild levels, it can appear during stress, social anxiety, or sleep deprivation. At stronger levels, it can be persistent and deeply distressing. It may appear in severe mood disorders, trauma-related conditions, or psychotic illnesses such as schizophrenia. The difference from hypervigilance is subtle but profound. Hypervigilance asks, what if something bad happens? Paranoia says, they are making something bad happen. Hypervigilance is fear without a face. Paranoia gives fear a face. Intent shifts here. The world is no longer just dangerous. It is personal. Someone means harm. And once harm becomes intentional in the mind, neutral events begin to feel like evidence. The laugh, the glance, the silence, all become clues. Now we cross a threshold. A persecutory delusion is not suspicion, it is certainty. A fixed, false belief that others are plotting, spying, poisoning, following, or attacking, despite clear evidence to the contrary. This is not a passing thought. It is a closed system. If you offer reassurance, it becomes proof of conspiracy. If you provide evidence, it becomes fabricated. The belief protects itself. This form of delusion is commonly associated with psychotic disorders such as delusional disorder, and can also occur in severe cases of schizophrenia. The defining trait: immovability. In hypervigilance, fear fluctuates. In paranoia, suspicion can be questioned. In persecutory delusion, doubt disappears. The person does not think they might be targeted. They know they are. Intent in their lived reality is hostile and organized. The world becomes a stage of coordinated threat. And the most important psychological shift happens here. The mind stops asking whether the threat is real. It begins strategizing survival against it. To an outside observer, all three states may look identical. The person avoids crowds, looks over their shoulder, feels unsafe everywhere. But the internal architecture is different. Hypervigilance lives in the nervous system. Paranoia lives in interpretation. Persecutory delusion lives in conviction. One is physiological overactivation. One is cognitive distortion. One is psychotic level fixed belief. The behavior may match. The intent behind the behavior does not. And that difference matters for understanding, for treatment, for compassion. The brain evolved for survival, not accuracy. It would rather detect a false threat than miss a real one. If our ancestors heard a rustle in the grass, it was safer to assume predator. The cost of overreacting, embarrassment. The cost of underreacting, death. Hypervigilance is survival circuitry in overdrive. Paranoia is pattern detection gone awry. The brain connecting dots that were never connected. Persecutory delusion is when that pattern becomes so reinforced that it overrides contradiction. In all three cases, the mind is trying to protect the self, even when it distorts reality, even when it isolates, even when it harms. Intent, at its core, is still defensive. There is a cultural myth that people who feel watched or unsafe are simply crazy. This myth collapses nuance. It ignores trauma. It ignores anxiety. It ignores neurobiology. Not every person scanning a room believes in conspiracies. Not every person with paranoia has psychosis. And not every delusion comes from weakness. These states are not moral failures. They are altered threat systems, and understanding the difference can be the line between dismissal and help. Here is where Anatomy of Intent asks its central question: what happens when these states drive action? A hypervigilant person may avoid relationships, cities, opportunities. A paranoid person may confront others, withdraw socially, or misinterpret kindness as manipulation. A person with persecutory delusion may make drastic decisions based on perceived attack. When fear becomes the architect of intent, behavior shifts, not because the person wants chaos, but because the world, to them, is already hostile. Understanding this reframes extreme behavior. Sometimes, what looks like aggression is preemptive defense. Sometimes, what looks like isolation is protection. Sometimes, what looks irrational is internally consistent, inside a different map of reality. So how do we tell the difference? Ask 3 questions. 1. Is this a bodily state of alertness? 2. Is this a suspicious interpretation of events? 3. Or is this an unshakable belief immune to evidence? The answer determines the category, and more importantly, the kind of help that works. Grounding techniques may calm hypervigilance. Cognitive therapy may challenge paranoid interpretations. Psychiatric treatment may be necessary for delusional disorders. Different routes, different interventions. Imagine again that quiet room. Nothing is happening, but inside the mind, 3 different stories could unfold. I need to stay ready. They are watching me. They are planning to harm me. Same room, different narrative, and narrative shapes intent. The mind is not our enemy. Even in distortion, it is trying to protect us. But protection without recalibration becomes captivity. The true danger is not fear itself. It is misunderstanding the source of that fear. On Anatomy of Intent, we don't just examine behavior, we trace it back to its origin. Because when you understand whether fear lives in the body, the interpretation, or the belief, you see the mind in a new light. And sometimes, that understanding is the first step towards safety.